Hello and welcome back to the United Adventure Front. This is another vlog to do with bike touring, bike packing, all things bike. I wanted to talk today about prepping for going on a trip. I'm currently planning a 2-week tour of the Outer Hebrides and then going to come back through from Ullapool back to Glasgow. So I just wanted to give 4 top tips for planning a trip that I think are really important. So my first tip would be to decide the type of trip that you want to go on. There are so many different variations of bike touring and bike trips in general, each with their own kind of different caveats. So some people like to go on guided tours, which are probably more expensive and they're led by someone. They're more likely to be highly organised, so people have got hotels for you or hostels and you're maybe not carrying as much stuff with you on your bike. Then there's bike touring, which is what I'm predominantly interested in, which is more carrying the tent and all your stuff with you on the bike and then just kind of setting up camp wherever you can, but also staying in campsites as well, just so you can have like a shower every now and then. And then there's other people who do more bike packing, which is where if you were going backpacking somewhere and you're on a bike, then that's the kind of place you would go. So it's definitely off the beaten track. So yeah, definitely decide what kind of trip do you want to do, because that'll dictate like everything else in terms of planning. My second tip would be to test your kit. There's nothing worse than getting out somewhere and then realizing that you've A, forgotten something, or B, you've got like way too much stuff and your bike's too heavy, or something's bloody broken, or you just don't know how to use it. So recently I got a new tent and a new stove, and so Liliana and I went up to Loch Atrin and we tested it all out. We checked everything was working, we sort of made ourselves work out how to use it. That's a sort of safe way to do it because we were just out for one night, so if anything was disastrously wrong, we probably could have made it back to Glasgow without too much bother. That's different to being out in the wilderness for a couple of weeks and realising that something's not working. The first time I went out with Johnny and we went camping sort of prior to our first trip, way back in 2011, we went to Loch Lomond and we found out that we had broken our tent poles like pretty much instantly. So luckily again, it was just for one night and we managed to somehow fix it. I can't really remember how, but we did and it was fine. But if that had been sort of through a trip, it would have been a total ball ache to fix. My third tip would be to make sure you've got a good map. Phones are amazing, but like they're pretty unreliable, especially if you're in the countryside, so you're not always going to have signal or access to the internet, and if you're relying on maps on your phone, you're kind of asking for trouble, I think. And it's also just not as fun being kind of glued to your phone even when you're on your bike trip. Also, it's really important that you've got a phone that's fully charged that you can use for emergencies if you can get a signal, but having a map, you won't need to use your phone as much, which is good. I love maps. I really freaking love maps. I have so many maps. I've got like a whole drawer that's like filled with all these maps. A good benefit of having a map prior to your trip as well is that you can use it to mark out places that you know there's going to be campsites or kind of safe places, you know there's going to be shops and things. You can use that to do a bit of prior research to make sure that if there's an emergency or you need a place to stay, then you know there's like places along your route that you can like check off and say that's a place where I know there's a decent campsite where we can get a shower or get food or something like that. It's just a good precaution to have, so I would highly recommend getting a really good map. So for my fourth tip, I'd say make sure you are flexible in your planning and your scheduling for your trip. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're rushing or racing to get somewhere for some abstract schedule that you've set for yourself. I mean, bar getting ferries or maybe visa restrictions, there's really no need to rush. If you can set out the time to do a trip, do it and give yourself time and make your own pace. You might find some days you're doing like 60 miles a day and then other days you're doing way more or actually like half that, or maybe some days you don't want to do anything because A, you're tired, or B, you want to actually visit a place. One of the best things about bike touring is that you get to visit a country and you get to actually like explore and get a feel for the vibe and meet people. And I think that if you're very flexible in your time and your planning, then it will let you sort of go with the flow and experience that in a much more like substantial way than if you were just going in by car or just doing a sort of flying visit to somewhere. In 2012, when John and I went on a trip from Paris to Berlin, we had not really planned anything. I think the main thing we had was our flight to Paris and our flight back from Berlin, and we sort of had rough directions on how to get out of Paris, but apart from that there was like nothing else planned. And when Johnny got like hit by a bus after the first like 10 minutes and he cut an artery in his foot and there was like blood going everywhere, it was horrifying, But basically, because we hadn't actually planned anything for a trip or organised it very well at all, apart from just the flights to Paris and the flight from Berlin back to home, all we had to do was really just change our plans. There was nothing to cancel, no reservations to change. It was all very simple to do. So that kind of flexibility came because we were pretty unorganised, but like in general, I would say try not to be too strict with your planning. So as an extra bonus tip, I'd say don't follow this advice, which I've seen in some blogs and some websites, is that if you're going to be sleeping in a tent, then you should maybe consider sleeping out in a back garden or like sleeping on your floor. Why would you do that? If you're going to be spending like 2 weeks sleeping like in a tent, why the hell would you not want to spend like your last nights in a bed beforehand? Enjoy the mattress. The mattress is your friend. Sleeping in a tent isn't comfortable. Like, you get used to it, but get used to it on the road, not like in your house. Do you have any thoughts on planning a trip? Is there anything that you wish you had done prior to a trip? Let me know in the comments below, and like and share if you like this and you want to share it. And if you want to see more from me vlogging about these things, then please subscribe. Because everything is different for everyone. Everything's different for everyone.